Hello and welcome to our new video, and this week I'm going to have to start it a little differently because where normally I welcome you to TKO Boxing, we decided to do a little rebrand and invest a bit into our new channel called Between the Ropes TV. We've made a few changes and it's all to bring you better content. But don't worry, Scott is still with us. We haven't kicked him out for better content. He will still be with us. He'll be back very soon, sadly, but he will be back. And so welcome to the first video of Between the Ropes TV. And it is a preview of the last week of Fight Camp. We've had 2 brilliant weeks, and then this week, hope it gets capped off nicely. And you ready, Josh? Just get straight into it?
Always ready, mate. I like that Hopey. That's where we're starting, isn't it?
Then we'll start. There we go. So take it away. Hopey Price versus Claudia Grande.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting fight, isn't it? Because, Hopey Price, he's still a young prospect, decent amateur, but very good amateur. And, this is the start of his pro journey. He's still, feeling the process out. He's learning. And, he's jumping in there with Claudia Grande, who's 5-0 himself. Now, I did do a little bit of research and, it's somewhat limited opposition. But, the fact that he's 5-0 shows that, he's going to come to fight, isn't he? He's not coming to... he's not just coming to survive or, just for the paycheck, which I think that's what Hopey Price needs. It's how you learn best, isn't it? We saw it a little bit last night with Johnny Fisher, and, he'll probably have learnt more in that first round than he had in his whole first 2 fights, won't he? So, but I still think Hopey Price will do a job. I think he'll get the win. I've been pretty impressed with what we've seen from him so far. So, I'm looking for another step forward, show us something else that you've not quite seen before. Yes, well, he's got a brilliant trainer. And then obviously, in fairness, he's already announced his fight afterwards, and he's hopefully, fighting in his hometown of Leeds, homecoming at Headingley against Zahid Hussein, who has got an extensive record. So there's a lot on the line because he's going to want to come through this with no cuts and, no injuries, isn't he?
Well, yeah, I always find it risky when they announce the next fight before the fight. You've got to wonder, is your head in the right frame you've got to just be concentrating on the fight ahead of you first. But I think it's always exciting when you've got 2 fighters who come up against each other at the same stage of their career. It's like you say, Hopey Price, he is going to be a favourite. But this fighter, Grande, he's going to want the same. He's going in there for the same result as Hopey Price and to boost their career, and whoever wins takes that step further. So it's always exciting. But right, so then it's Tasha Jonas. And we don't know her opponent just yet. So what are you expecting to see from Jonas this week?
To be honest, I think, the fact that, it's a similar situation with Savannah Marshall, which obviously we'll come on to later. I think, she's been in some serious fights, hasn't she, in fairness to Tasha Jonas. We're a big fan of her on this channel. And, she ran Katie Taylor quite close, I thought, back in May this year. The workhorse for the rematch. And then obviously you go back to last year's Fight Camp in her other world title challenge. And she controversially lost to Terry Harper. I know we both felt she beat Terry Harper. So what I'd quite like to see is you'd assume this is going to be, against a routine opponent, a routine win that will propel her back into, your world title fights. And that's what I want to see. I really want to see the Terry Harper rematch. I think that's what as fans, we've got a right to see it. No one can argue that the first fight wasn't a controversial decision. So yeah, there's not really much more to add than that for me. That's what I need to see. I want to see her back in world title fights because she really does impress at world level, and I feel like she's drawn the best out of her opponents as well.
Well, I think both Harper and Katie Taylor had to dig deep to beat her. I think and they're always good fights, are exciting, and she's always in them. Like both of those are both world title challenges for her, and she held her own. And like you said, she brought the best out, and that to dig deep to beat her. But it could have gone either way. I do think that the Taylor fight, I had Taylor winning that, but not by much.
It was close.
It was very close, but I think when you go back to the Terry Harper fight, it's so similar to the Taylor Pursoon #1. I think the outcome was the same. And it's like, I know theirs was a draw, not someone winning, but I think they got their rematch because of how that first fight went. Therefore, I do believe Terry Harper should come back from her injury, have her fight, and then their rematch, because it's not settled. She didn't blow her out the water. She lot of people said she didn't win. So as a world champion, like we always say, unfortunately, the women's division hasn't got much depth yet. So with Terry Harper, one of the best fights she could have at the moment, he's going back to Natasha Jonas. Even though it's only a defence for her, not challenging, it is still a fight that I think everyone wants to see again. And I don't think it'll disappoint.
I think fighters' pride comes into it as well, isn't it? I mean, we touched on it with the guys from Last Bell last night. And, that Terry Harper, everything you see of her, she's not arrogant. There's no airs, no graces. So I would imagine that she would want to sort of correct that decision, I think. So it's something that we definitely need to see.
Yep, I definitely think so. So then the next one is Cash Farouk versus Luis Guardado Castillo. I'm terrible at names, so I'm going to apologise straight away. Let's just go on. What's your opinion? Not on what I said.
No, well, it's potentially a tough fight at face value. Obviously Cash Farouk, he's had a bit of promotion behind him with Hearn, coming in with a 15-1 record. And then you look at Castillo coming in 28-2, 18 knockouts in that. So I think, you think, oh, that's a tough fight. But I've got to be honest, you dig a little deeper. I mean, firstly, Cash Farouk is coming off the back of 2 points wins since his Lee McGregor loss for the Commonwealth. Obviously, we know Lee McGregor's gone on to do bigger and better things. But he's still only 25. So I still want to see him build. He's got to get the win. I think he will get the win, and it's important. But then you look at Castillo, and it's a quite impressive record, but it's also a very padded record. I went through BoxRec and had a look, and a lot of his more recent fights have got negative records. So although it does suggest it's good, I think Farouk will win it and sort of win it reasonably comfortably. The one thing I would say that if you've got 18 knockouts on your record, in fairness, you can obviously punch whoever you're fighting against. So it'll probably give enough for Cash Farouk to think about, but I don't think it's not. He should win it, is what I'm trying to say. Badly.
You got there in the end. No, I can't disagree with what you're saying. I think that's the thing. It's a padded record, as you say, but you've got to have power. It's not that many people out, no matter who you're in against, whether they can box or not. Some people just can't box but have a chin. So I do think there's got to be some power in it. So even though I think Cash will come out on top, I think there'll be a hesitant start just to feel it, see what power he has got. And then from there, I do think he'll take control. I think it'll be a points victory.
Yeah.
But I think he'll just take control and he'll just outbox him. So right, next we've got Michael McKenson against Ranowski. Not pronouncing his first name. Not even going to attempt to. It's just Ranowski.
You're scared, mate. Just,
I admit it, I'm scared. I'm not going to go there. So, yeah, you look at both their records. Ranowski's lost one. McKennan's unbeaten. They're not knockout merchants. They both win by boxing. They outbox their opponent. That's how they win. So I do, looking at the records and looking at the styles, I think it will go all the way. But what do you think is going to happen?
Well, I think you're right. I think it'll probably be a little bit of a chess match, and it could be one of those that catch fire in the middle rounds. But Michael McKinson coming in, and the brilliant thing about what Matchroom and Eddie Hearn have done all through this COVID period is they've given fighters chances, and it's sort of been winner stays on, hasn't it? And McKinson last time out beat Chris Congo, which was a massive win for him. So I'm expecting him to sort of kick on. You look at Ranowski's only loss was to Josh Kelly, which, I know obviously Kelly lost to Avanesian, but I think, there's no shame in that. Avanesian's a good fighter, and it's probably just a step up, probably a little bit too soon. But, Ranowski, I think he's going to bring some problems for McKinson to face. I think it probably is a little bit of a dangerous fight. But I would back McKinson to win it on points. And then I'll be honest, I'd like to see him in with Josh Kelly next. That would be, Kelly's got to come back. He's still a young fighter. And I think McKinson, that could be a good fight and one I'd like to see.
Yeah, I think Kelly needs to come back at a decent level. And I think that's a level for him to come back at after his recent loss. Like you said, enough to be ashamed of that loss. But again, I think the whole COVID breaks and that, and the way boxing's gone, it's affected a lot of boxers in negative ways. But that can all bounce back. Like you say, he's young, he's got time, and that's a fight I think everyone's going to want to see. So moving forward, we have Raymond Ford versus Rhys Belotti. And which way do you see this one going?
But Joe, I'm actually quite excited about this fight. I mean, Rhys Belotti, he's coming off the back of 2 losses, one of which was to Jordan Gill, who's a fighter we're excited about on this channel again in the Dave Caldwell camp. So I'm quite excited. But his overall record 14-4. He's coming up against Raymond Ford. He's only 22. He's 8-0 with a draw, 4 knockouts. So you'd say he can punch a little bit, but he did draw last time out. But with his sort of 8-0 record, in fairness to him, he's fought people with positive records. So it's not one of these young prospects who their first 10 fights are 3 wins and 26 losses. So I think he's going to bring some danger to Rhys Belotti. I really do. And I'm a fan of Belotti's work. But I think this is a big test for him. I really do. And you look at what could be next for either. I think if Belotti loses with who else he's lost to, obviously it's domestic level, I think he's at a little bit of a crossroads. Whereas Raymond Ford's young enough to come again. But I think this is a great fight for Ford to be taking because it's a bit of a name and it exposes him in this country. And, it'll really show where he's at now. And I think that's, I like that sort of a fight. I really do. But I think Ford will just edge it. If you push me for a prediction, I'd say points. But I'm not sure. I could see the knockout happening. But it can be hard to back against Belotti at times. But I will go with Ford.
Well, I was going to push for the decision, so beat me to it. Do you think it's the potential showstopper? Because from what you're saying, that's the impression I'm getting, that you think this one could be the fight. That at the end of the night, you say, right, that was the one for you. That's what I'm getting from the way you're talking.
I think it'll be a good fight from the undercard, but I think this one, certainly from the male side, is all about the main event. Obviously,
yeah. Well, one more fight before, and that is Savannah Marshall. Hasn't got an opponent yet. Yeah. So what do you think? What are you expecting to see from her? What do you reckon she's got to go out there and do? And who do you want it to be?
Again, you look at the middleweight division, we talk about it a lot, and I feel like we're doing women's boxing a disservice almost at times, and we're not. It's just you've got the absolute elite level fighters, which I class Savannah Marshall in, and then there's just no middle ground. When with the male boxing, you get a routine defense, don't you? And I'll take a voluntary and fight someone on the fringe. Unfortunately for the women, it's either super fights or you fight in at best up and comers. Is probably the nicest way you can sort of put it. This fight, I think Savannah Marshall, 10-0, 8 knockouts. I think it's going to be relatively routine defense. Obviously, she's going to have to fight someone that's obviously ranked with the WBO to obviously keep hold of the title, obviously. But she's such an exciting talent. So I think she'll come through this. It'll be a tick-over fight, keep active. Obviously, she's in with Peter Fury. He's done a great job with her and will continue to do so. And I'm really hoping that it's just the tick-over fight and then we get the Clarissa Shields fight. There's been a lot of talk about it in the last sort of 6 to 12 months. I know Shields is going off and she won her MMA debut and, fair play to it. It really is impressive when you see that sort of thing, isn't it? They're crossing over and down to the job. But boxing for me is where she can probably, selfishly, she can probably make more money. And it's about legacy, isn't it? Savannah Marshall's the only woman to have ever beaten her. That's got to eat away at you. I don't care who you are. If you're Clarissa Shields, I'm thinking I need to right that wrong.
Well, I
want to see. I think it's the second biggest fight in women's boxing behind Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano.
Yeah, Joe, I agree. And I think that's the thing with the way Shields, mindset, she's very strong, she's positive. She thinks she's the best in the world. And as the best in the world, that one blemish on your record, amateur or not, you think you're good enough to correct it, so you want to correct it. And especially when that person's also really like Savannah Marshall, she's having a great career. She's winning in style. She's got a world title. It's not like she's turned pro and become a nobody. She's turned pro and she's a world champion. So it's a fight that people want to see. And I do think if Shields makes that jump back from MMA to boxing, that's where she'll go. But you can't jump straight into Savannah Marshall. You've just got to you've got to transition correctly. Still, even if you're only out for one fight, you've still got to make sure you're in it.
No, exactly. But I mean, Clarissa Shields fought 6-7 weeks ago, I think, in MMA. I know there was talk of, it may even be confirmed. I'll be honest, I don't know. Talk of a second MMA fight before she came back to boxing. but she's got to come back. I mean, purely in this, this world of social media that we live in, there will be so much talk, about, she stays over in MMA. Yeah, fair play. But there'll be a lot of talk that she's ducking the likes of Savannah Marshall and, come and prove you the best, because you'd have to say she probably is the, or if not certainly, she's in the top 2 or 3 pound for pound in women's boxing. So come and prove it. And in fairness to Savannah Marshall, that's sort of all she said. Like, she said, I'm here. I've got a world title. What more can I do? I'm undefeated. I've turned up. I'm impressing. The boxing world are talking about me. Come and fight me. You can't knock her for that.
No, that's what I like about Savannah Marshall. She's straight talking. She doesn't trash talk to an extent. She doesn't get... Well, Peter Fury does a lot of it for her. But she just says it as it is. She's straight talking. She just wants the next fight. She does want Clarissa Shields. But if she's not the next woman in front of her, then she'll get through that person until she gets to her. And by her, that's fine. She just wants to box. And that's good to see. And to be honest, all the world champions at women level seem the same. They all just want to fight. And it's great to see. But let's move on to the main event then. So fight camp week 3, main event. Josh Buatsi versus Ricard Belotti. God, this is bad. Go on, and what do you think about this fight? Is it the right challenge at the right time for Buatsi?
Absolutely. I think, there's been calls for a good while to step Josh Buatsi up. Let's him go through the gears, through the levels. And, I think he's ranked 2 with the WBA. So, he's on the fringes of that possible world title shot. It's looking like, obviously, with the Bivol and Canelo fight, the world title is going to be tied up for a little bit. That's fine, I think. Belotti, it's a step up. He's beat the likes of Jose Burton, who we know can fight and really bring the best out of fighters. So I think it's like an acid test fight for me. It's going to really show us. We saw Buatsi win ugly-ish against Kalic, not in his last fight against Dos Santos, the fight before. And I think it's another fight with the potential to show us where Buatsi's really at, because let's not forget, at light heavyweight, domestically, we've got Lyndon Arthur, Anthony Yard. They're having their rematch. You've got Callum Johnson, Callum Smith now even into the mix. So there's a lot of fights domestically that, I mean, if you hold out, they could all end up being for world titles in the not too distant future. But I want to see it now. I think if he comes through, and, it's by no means a gimme at all. He's going to have to box and box well. We know he can do that. We've seen it. He's got the amateur pedigree with his bronze on the last Olympic cycle in Rio. I think it's going to tell us a lot about, we're all excited about Buatsi, and we're all thinking he could be the next, a next big sort of star of British boxing. And I think this is going to point us in the right direction and see what's next. If he comes through, which I think he will, I really want to see him against the winner of Lyndon Arthur or Anthony Yard.
And do you think he'd come on top in that one? Because that wouldn't be easy for him.
I think Lyndon Arthur would give him a tougher fight than Anthony Yard would. If I'm honest, I'd back him to beat Yard and beat Yard quite well.
I think it's Yard's engine, isn't it, for me? You watch him, he comes out strong at the start, but then he just seems to, towards the end of a fight, he just looks tired.
Yeah,
and that's where he loses.
I wouldn't disagree. I mean, I'd also love to see him with Callum Johnson. I know obviously Johnson's now promoted by Frank Warren, so that fight is same as Arthur and Yard, possibly harder to make. But I'd like to see it because Callum Johnson, he's mixed it at world level. He pushed Beterbiev, didn't he? He was considered a monster at 175. So that would be a great fight for him. And then obviously now with Callum Smith, there's talk of him fighting in September at light heavyweight. And I think he's always been such a big super middleweight. And I've always sort of thought, God, how does he make that weight? And now we're going to see what he can do at this weight. And he could be a real force. So it's such an exciting time domestically. We've spoken quite a bit with the last couple of weeks' events about domestically the featherweights. It's the same at light heavyweight. I've just there named 5 or 6, really good, probably world level British light heavyweights. And I think Buatsi's got the potential to come out on top against them all.
I think that's the thing, is that he's brilliant, Buatsi, and Callum Smith, this is the right time now for him to change weight. But he's already done the hard work. He doesn't need to work his way up. It's kind of like he has the right to come in at a certain level So I do think these fights are all going to start happening within the next 12 months. Now, I do think you're right with Belotti. He's going to be at the top. He's a future world champion. I think that's going to happen for me. I really think he's going to end up.
100%.
Whether he fights Bivol or Canelo, loses, he'd still be a world champion at some point. I'm very confident on that. But no, anything else to add?
No, nothing else to add. I just, we've put this time and we're doing this sort of rebrand and restructuring of how we're doing things. So, guys, obviously, don't forget, like and subscribe for us. Let us know what you guys think in the comments as well. Because, we sit here and talk, but everyone's got an opinion and we really want to start interacting with people more and seeing what everyone else thinks.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better myself. So, look forward to the last fight camp this year. And thank you all for tuning into the new Between the Ropes TV. And we'll see you next time.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.